Hey guys and gals, whatever. I don't feel good. I just got a message from someone in regards to a section of Avidya, and it was about it was probably the reading I did from my book about the vision dream, what do you want to call it, that the main character had about returning home. So I wanted to kind of search through this real quick. So the book, the story is centered around, as I've said, a hero, a Frodo, a Luke, a Harry, or I don't know anymore, like modern day heroes. But the story is an exploration deeper than what it is, clearly. Now, as you know, I've been exploring, I almost said philology, which is not true. I've been exploring the mythology and fantasy and stuff like that, and just what stories are trying to tell. And I just made that video about how, like, man, I didn't plan any of this, but it fucking happened, you know, that. And it's true. But as I go back through and I look at the book, remember I said I edited it? Well, I haven't gotten any farther. I literally made this video an hour after the last one, called something. And there's a lot of things that struck me. A lot of shit. One, just how mind-blown I am by the way the book is laid out, because I think that this is what it is. I didn't purposely set out, as it happened in real time, having like messages and like, you know, allegories and metaphors and, you know, like, oh yeah, this is a representation of childhood to birth into adulthood, you know. No. But it all happened, and I'm going back and I'm realizing that that is what's happening. So the main character will go through transition. And for me, if someone were to say, what's the book about? I always kind of say it's a fantasy book, and it's kind of like Lord of the Ringsy, I guess, but it's a coming to age tale. Now, for me, the book explores elements of growth. I'm just in shock sometimes of all this stuff, but the first book explores the ideas. Well, it explores many ideas, and I'm just going to rattle off a few just so you can kind of get an understanding. One, it explores the idea of being born from your childhood into adulthood, that transitionary phase, and all the traumas that kind of come along on that journey. It also explores elements of someone who lived a sheltered life, whether that be mentally or physically, and when they're thrust into the world around them, just how it can affect them and what they learned from the past. And also, in many ways, it explores concepts of using people. The story centers around this person, and everyone around him needs him, or they think they know what's best for him, or they think they need to protect him. And what I try to do is show you the one person who's being thrust in the world that has not a fucking clue of what to do. He is at a loss of everything. He's a fucking child that's being thrust into a world full of murder, mayhem, and rape, and fucking, I don't know, what's worse than that? You know what I mean? Horrible, horrible things. And he has to bear witness to this shit. He has to be confronted by the evils within society and what could be festering within himself. He has to do that, but at the same time he realizes that there are some reason that everyone wants something from him. Now, all these people around him are indeed looking out for his best interest in some way or another. But because they're doing that, they're looking out for the innocent part of themselves, because every time they look upon this kid, they see that part of themselves, and that's the thing they want to protect and shape. Instead of allowing the boy to grow and shape his own mind, he's at the whim of everyone around him. So there's so many aspects of what is a trauma from the childhood, but also when we reflect back and we see it in real time happening, I wouldn't call it like a coddling, but definitely what could we halt in the growth, the progress of growth with this character, with this person. Now, that section I read in the last one about him having the dream of going back to his family home, I did a very hard symbology in the beginning of the book, within the first 50 pages, of what it is to be born into adulthood. Now, the purposes of the books are to go through the process of growing. So book 1 is born into the fucking world. You are born into adulthood. The second book becomes the hardening of the world. Then eventually the third will be the inner dwelling, and the idea of like, holy shit, what happened? Where am I? And now we're processing it all. And then going from there, we're going to explore the character and have him grow and age as building blocks of an understanding of what the human condition is. Now, the thing that I really wanted to explore the most in the book would be, let me say it like this. I wanted to tell the story that young men could relate to. And young man could be fucking old enough to read, all the way till read incognitely and understand the words I'm fucking putting in here, all the way up to whatever you consider young at heart. I wanted this to be for boys, because it's just, I don't feel like they have a voice. And so in doing that, the one thing that I had to do for myself was I had to channel that part of me. And I, again, as the older characters do with the young character, I, through this boy, Eris, the main character, am trying to speak to my younger self. Now, the biggest struggles that I used to have, which is going back to childhood, the biggest struggles that I would have was accepting what this fucking world was. That mankind, the world of mankind. The structures, the society, the ideas, the bullshit that you have to participate in. It was really hard for me to accept that. I don't know how to explain it, but I had a really hard time with it. I'm gonna sneeze. I keep that. No, I had a really hard time with that. It was just something of a struggle. And for me, as I reflect back upon my growing, the biggest thing that was hard for me was school. That forced element of your life. I will always remember the first day of kindergarten. That will never be a moment left in my mind. I just remember this is how I felt at the time, so I'm not trying to be dark, but I just remember as a young boy, I thought I was abandoned to this fucking place. I remember getting off the bus, standing there, and there were like kids all running around, and it was scattered, and it was like loud, and it was a lot. We were outside from the buses. There was, right after the buses, there was the, sidewalk, and then that led into the building doors and shit. And there was kids running all over the place because there was multiple buses lined up. I couldn't tell you how many, but there was more than 3. And like, they were all doing that. I just was standing amidst it all. and just looking around, and I was like in shock, in absolute shock. I was like, holy fuck, I've been like abandoned here. This is where we are. This is where we're going to be from now on. Now, again, these are moments I will always try to capture in the book, and I really tried when it comes to the story. So just keep that in mind. And then I think a teacher or an aide or somebody came up to me and like directed me. That's the end of that. From that point, school was this prison for me. Sorry. I realized that I had to go here. I had no choice. I asked my mom why, and I don't want to, and I had to. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be it. Like, this fucking blows. And I was so, it was very traumatizing. And then I had to be there with all these fucking kids that I didn't know, and I had to form, I don't really remember having friends. Because I didn't want to, I didn't want to participate. I don't want to play. Eventually I made friends with a overweight, half-blind albino boy. And his name was Timothy. His hair was white as snow. His eyes had the little red in the middle because he was like mostly blind. You could barely see. And they would like shift like that. And he was chubby and he was ghostly pale. And he was my only friend, if you want to call it that. He was probably just an autistic boy, the way he is and the way I saw my brother growing up. Yeah, I think he was autistic. And everyone was mean to him and stuff and bullied him. And he was so himself. I watched the trauma go through him as well of being who you are. People will fucking hurt you, you know, if you are too much yourself, if you're too different. It's very odd. They want to beat it out of you, kind of thing. I remained his friend, and that was my whole experience. I'm not going to go into the day-to-day shit about school, but overall, it was a very traumatic experience. And I, for many years, had nightmares that I had to go back. Many years. I think they finally stopped, but I still was having them in my mid to late 20s, which I'm 30, I think 32 now, or I'm 31, 32, one of those. But they stopped happening in my later, like 27-ish, 28. When I finally stopped having the nightmares about having to go back to school. It was horrible. And I know to most people, it's kind of an over-exaggeration, but you kind of have to take yourself back into that mindset of not having any context. I'm not saying my parents didn't explain to me what this was, but I had no recollection of it. I had very many moments of, I swear, just feeling like I was abandoned. Which I don't know if that's where most of my abandonment issues come from, but whatever. That's besides the point. But whenever we went home, things were as okay as they could be. Because you know how it can get at home. And, man, I have a whole lot of things I could talk about. But I'll stay on point. Home is the place where I felt okay. Whenever I returned, my friends were there. My room, I guess. And everything that was comfortable was inside this bubble. Now, eventually you lose that bubble. And that's the first thing that happens, like, to my character, is the bubble is popped. You lose everything that you grew up with and you were so comfortable with disappears. That could be, in your life, it could be metaphoric, like when you first finally moved out, or, you know, maybe you moved a lot as a kid, who knows? Or it was traumatic. Like maybe you had to escape from an abusive parent. Maybe the house burned down. Whatever it was, that first moment of the bubble being popped, and you become thrust into the world. A lot of the times, it's by your own hand, and sometimes it's not. We all sought to move out of our parents' house at that age, whatever it was. That was our choice. But the steps going forward from that point were tough. So, like in my case, when I left home, I come from a poor family. I knew that I was not going to get any help from them financially. You know what I mean? Like, they couldn't afford to get me a license. I had to do them on my own as an adult. I had to buy my own vehicle. I had to, I never would get financial aid. I just knew that. So I was like, well, that's not something I will have. So when I go, this is me. I can only do this by myself. There's no one that will help me. Not saying I won't have a place to stay if worse comes to worse, but it's just if I need, like, I need rent money or whatever, it's no one's helping me. It's all me. And that was a harsh reality to face, and you get through it, and eventually you find your way. But it does, I mean, think of your 20s, unless you're in your 20s. For me, I would say that my 20s was a storm, was a fucking storm. Though maybe I was skinnier, more fit, or I don't know, what are positive things? Single for a decent amount of it. And all this positive stuff, it was still, it was a fucking nightmare. As I look back, as a grown adult who likes the calm, I'm a fucking hobbit, dude. I love peace and quiet and a good pipe, you know? I do. I really love peace and happiness and just being in my home and it's comfortable and quiet and the world's away. Escapism. My entire 20s was not that. And the things that I did and things that I put up with and the people that I met and the fucking experiences that we shaped within ourselves, interesting, but they were very chaotic, and I don't miss it. I really don't. I don't care if I don't, like, back then I could actually sleep and stay asleep, and I woke up rested. I wasn't hurting all the time. Like, I don't give a fuck. I wouldn't trade that to go back. Absolutely not. There's no way I could live my 20s again. What a horrible 10 years. But that moment there was a shaping of self. And that was luckily, going out to the world, luckily you're not 10 years old. You're being thrust out at 17, 18, 19, whatever the fuck it was for you. I don't remember mine. Mine might have been 21. About 21 years old or so. Was the first time. Maybe 20, 21. No, yeah, 20. Well, that's when I finally went out. So, doesn't matter when, but there is that kind of exchange that happens where you take the hat off, you pay the piper, whatever the fuck you want to call it. You basically say goodbye to that time of your life, because you're never going to come back. And once you leave home, once you leave it, you have to find another home. For me, took my entire 20s. Do I still feel like I have a home? Here, technically. But it's the people you have it with. The things you have around you. Not the building you're in. At least from my experience. I'm never going to be able to buy a house. I've accepted that fact. But I found a home. It took me a long fucking time. And from that, the experiences that has burned into my mind, I feel it to be my job to kind of bear it, whether that be through the book or through these videos of, like, I'm just going to be 100% honest of what it was for me. I'll go into more detail about stuff if it comes up, but it is very difficult, is it not? It's incredibly difficult trying to figure this shit out when it's all on you. You know how when you were young you looked at adults and you thought, man, they got it, and then you become one and you realize no one ever does, nor will they ever. That was eye-opening, and I think take that seriously. Take that fucking thought seriously. There are some people who never grow. They get to a certain point and then they live their life that way. And there's nothing they'll do about it. Whether that be victim mentalities, whether that be living their traumas and like identifying as their traumas. We know a lot of people like that. A lot of people. The darker side of themselves, there's exchanges that people have in their darkest time. If you don't experience it yourself, you just gotta watch like a fucking police body cam video. You want to talk about that shit, just do that. Look at what people turned into. The kind of people that need to be, well, if they're on a video on the internet, then something bad happened. It ain't just a little like, oh, you know, it was a misunderstanding, and it's no, there's either drugs, death, or some fucked up shit involved. And so, yeah, when people are in those moments, there's a lot to be gleaned from that. They're on their journey, and sometimes, man, like, people never find home, and they only find pain and trauma, and that's when you bump into them. And there's something in that moment exchanged where it's like, they're at their end. They're at that point, like, well, fuck it. Like, I got to now. Now I gotta fight. And it's punished by society, but holy shit, man, it's like, that for me was the warning. And I did not ever want to become that. And so, like, why I try not to get involved in things or get upset by stuff. And the previous video I talked about just not allowing society to fuck with my mind, because I don't want to get in that mode. I don't want to allow myself that point, because through my life that I grew up in, that chaos, I don't want to go back to chaos again like that. And so why I write the book is I want to explore the growth of that, and the pitfalls and the mistakes, and like I have this character that you know as the reader, and he knows as the character, that he's not doing a good fucking thing. That he's doing a horrendous fucking thing. And we all know this. But like, you're gonna have to just watch him do it. Like, it was hard to write. You know, like, to make a character, like, I don't want to give too much away, so I'm trying to keep it, you know, not obvious, but he's got to do some fucked up things, and you're gonna have to watch him do it. And not only that, and it's not like horrible horror. I don't like make you, do I? No, I don't make you like, well, watch too much like crazy stuff with him. But the idea is, where can that mind go when it fools itself into thinking that this is meant to be, this has to be, this is the only choice? Because that is the biggest thing with people, is when they feel they have no voice, that is those moments where they make a choice. And sometimes they get themselves killed, injured, jailed, whatever that may be. People made a fucking choice because they felt they had none. That is a person that has nothing left. Whenever you're at the point of either getting yourself killed, hurt, or put in jail, or, you know, anything other thing like that, you're at a point, dude, like, that's a specific area that you're like, yeah, I gotta fucking fight. I have to do this. I have to say this. I have to, whatever it is. To me, I'm going to equate it back to my book. That's the promise. The malevolent being. The whisper. The darkness. The darkness is the place. The whisper is the creature. The promise. Which in my book is, the promise is just that feeling you get when you expel your hatred, anger, and fear. It's the reward. Feels good to lash out at people. Feels good to hurt somebody. Makes you feel a little bit better. It feels good to bully. That's a promise. You do this, you'll feel better. But slowly does it eat you away. Now that's the bad guy in my book, but I think that's kind of how it works in life too. You make a choice, and the promise whispers to you that you'll feel better once you make this choice. Then you do something you regret. You say something mean, you hurt somebody, you get an altercation, you actually fist fight somebody, I don't know, whatever that may be. You make a mean comment in a video, whatever. Makes you think like you feel better if you punch something hard enough, but that's not how that works. It becomes like a drug. And that fuels our traumas. To which, going back to the beginning of this, that is the reason for the childhood to grow into adulthood. Because the biggest thing that I want to explore in the book, the biggest thing, is growing your emotional maturity. I'm sure you probably met a lot of people that maybe they're older than you, let's say, but their emotional intelligence is like a child. It's pretty crazy. They just never figured it out. They just never got the opportunity to piece it together. They never quieted their mind for a moment. And how tragic is that you can't quiet your mind? That you can't just be with yourself and reflect and then make change and find peace. That to me is mind-blowing. To ignore the fucking hardships that I've faced in my life, just whatever. I don't think about it. Like, that's horrible. That sounds scary to me. And I wish that upon nobody. But as I get on more and more, do I notice it with people and what they hide, what they stop. You ever spoke to somebody and you saw their wound and you're like, whatever happened in their lives, you kind of see it happen to them, and you could see it written upon them that this is really hard for them to deal with, and you just kind of like, I wouldn't say poke it, but you just say, well, what is it? What's wrong? And you see them just shut down. To me, that's scarier than anything. Like, that's one of the biggest fears in my life, to be that way. And don't get me wrong, I've been struggling with a lot of things. I'm human, so I've been having horrible time with coming to terms with the reality of who I really am, and it's not easy. But it all goes back to our childhood. So for me, I told the story about going to school and what it made me feel like. That made me feel to encompass. I felt abandoned. Which was one of the biggest stupid fucking struggles that I've had in my life. You become what you fear, right? You're afraid of abandonment, well, you make people abandon you because you push them so hard. So it's like, the idea of the character leaving his home for the last time, that's important. I don't even know if I should talk about this. Just because it's so, but it's one of the hardest things that in my life. But fuck it, I guess. I was, what was it, like 5 years ago? Maybe? 23, 22, 21, 2018. Okay, that sounds about right. Me and, no, I don't know. Because it would be a whole long tale. Because it's too much. It's way too much to fucking, you have to know a lot. I can't just tell you. a little bit. To know the gravity of, I was at my breaking point. I was at my fucking breaking point. That was the hardest thing that I've ever faced in my life so far. Maybe sometime when it's relevant. Because it happened in my adult life. You know, we all have our traumas, but I think it was just, I wanted to really bring stuff up about what I'm doing, because it can be a lot to stay inside my head for a long period of time. The prison, actually, that it feels like. You ever feel like your body's a fucking prison? You know, like that kind of shit. That's what it feels like sometimes, right? You just want to like tear out of it, be free, but you can't. You know, unless you blow your fucking brains out, then there you go. Maybe that's punishment. I don't know. But I've been kind of feeling very blessed that I have been doing this. And that's, there's someone that actually messages me like privately and stuff, and it's so cool to have that. You know what I mean? It's really cool to like say you're talking to someone you would never have had the opportunity to meet. And there's a couple people that I talk to that I don't even know what they look like. I don't know what they sound like. It's crazy. Because of this, you know, it's crazy. But what I do get, which is the reason for it, I want to stay on topic, but this is something I want to say. I feel the job getting started that I'm supposed to do. There are certain people in this world that need to hear a message, or need to hear something echoed, or related to, or whatever it may be. I feel like it's starting. Because I know, you know, what I really want to do is to help people and to spread a message. To spread a message of this unity I'm thinking about, that I see in so many people, and you know, my friends and the people I work with, and the people I communicate with, like through email or message or whatever. I feel something amongst everybody, this thing. And it's like, I feel like, okay, like this is the fucking thing that I'm here for. I gotta bring this up. This is the fucking thing. This is your essence. I just want everyone to feel super cared about and heard, so that they may feel comfortable enough so that we may enact change within ourselves. I know that sounds pretty crazy, but it's the only thing I got. It's like, I love seeing the greatness in people that I care about. And I love to help that shine. You know what I mean? Because you help that shine. It illuminates you. You know, the light bulb in the dark. And what does that do? Well, that helps you see better too. And now all of a sudden you can see the better parts of yourself. And that's kind of my goal, is to just help and try to grow with each other. And I created this world as one of the tools to do so. And the book. And I just have to say, after doing a reread, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. I truly can't believe that I did it. But, I mean, No one else wrote it. It's not like I passed it off to someone else to write for a while. It was all me, and that's crazy to think. And I'm really excited for the day I finally can get it to people. Just to hear it back, like what they might think about it. Really excited about that. And I just wanted to kind of talk about that and just... The book is about trauma. We all have it. But that's the point of the book. It says you have it. And watch this. And you see it. And you watch it. You participate in it. Then eventually you come out and you find a way through it. Sometimes the way through it changes. Sometimes it's just not thinking about it. But then after a while, you find that the more you do that, the worse it gets. That demon grows on your shoulder a little bit. And then all of a sudden you got a problem. The one that follows you just as hard as you followed it. Yeah, I'll try my best to be more open about some things, you know, just to help people to see, you know, if they can use it as examples of bettering themselves, and that's the point, man. The reason I made this video is because I got a comment about my fucking weird little reading of my book. Just that one section that I just was like, oh, this is weird that I wrote it. And that's why, you know, I'm like, well, fuck. That's just a random snippet of a part that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot better, deep explorative things in that book that I'm really excited for people to read, man. Just like, forewarning, it's very cerebral. There is a lot of inner thought dwelling. Eris will just sit there and just process and just inner thoughts bombarding his swirling mind, you know? Like, what the fuck's going on? What is this? Trying to find hope, reason to continue on, you know? And I think that's very relatable. So, that's another video done. So, hopefully, I'll send this out tomorrow. We'll see you in the next one.